Then in Sports Central, we go for our next team prediction of this offseason, and it's going to be over the Northwestern Wildcats, a team that went 1-11 overall in the 2022 season. Definitely a challenging season for Northwestern, only one win last year. About this team being 2023, and what can we expect out of the Wildcats in the upcoming season? That's what we'll be talking about here today. We'll be analyzing this team and predict their schedule game by game in this video. Let's get started with a quick recap of 2022. Once again, the record being 1-11, and I mean, this team's one win came in the first game of the season, week 0 against Nebraska in Ireland, beat them 31-28, but yeah, that was about it for this team last season. Lost to Duke by 8. Then lost to Southern Illinois and Miami, Ohio in back-to-back weeks. Two just bad losses there. But I will say this about this team. Defensively, really played well at multiple points throughout the season. I mean, kept it close in a lot of games where this team really should have had no business being in. I mean, against Penn State, for example, allowed 17 points to them. Lost to them 17-7. Lost to Ohio State, one of the best offenses in the country. Allowed 21 points there and lost to them 21-7. It was just the offense that was atrocious last season throughout. I mean, this offense was, down the stretch, didn't score more than 13 points from the Maryland game onwards. So just a challenging season for this team overall. I mean, offensively couldn't get anything going, and in the end, just a bad year for this team. But looking forward to 2023 now with your roster preview. Ryan Helinski is gone, which really didn't play super well last season. I mean, 1,600 yards, 6 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. I mean, the stats speak for themselves. Just not a really good quarterback last year. But you got Ben Bryant coming in from Cincinnati, who really doesn't have very high expectations either, but I do think he's got more potential than Ryan Helinski did, at least coming in last season. So, we'll see what Ben Bryant can do. And I will say this, though, it's going to be tough losing Evan Hull. Last season, really, he was the most talented player on this offense. 1,400 total yards with 7 touchdowns. Really, he's a talented player. Evan Hull was great last year, but otherwise just not a good offense. Cam Porter's coming back, though, the second in the backfield. You lose Malik Washington and Donnie Navarro. You bring back Bryce Kurtz and then Marshall Lang, your third wideout, and then your top tight end from last season. So you lose your top 2 in the receiving core. You lose your top running back, your starting quarterback, even though Ben Bryant could totally be better in 2023. But then you lose 2 on the O-line, so that's not going to help anything. And defensively, though, not terrible. You lose 2 on the D-line, 3 in the secondary. Overall linebackers look halfway decent. So, this defense could be better in 2023. The defensive secondary does lose a couple of key players, but otherwise, there is some promise for the defense, I would say. Last season even, we saw promise out of the defense at multiple points. You consider especially the Penn State and Ohio State games, really, this defense came to play and they played pretty well, but it was just, once again, the offense that was just horrible last season. This offense couldn't win this team any games, and won it against Nebraska, but that was week 0, and that was it for this team last year. And obviously with the coaching situation, David Braun stepping in as the interim head coach, Pat Fitzgerald, after being with this program for so long and really bringing a lot of success to this program too. One that's just not known for being very good at football. It's a very uncertain situation right now for Northwestern. I just think that, future is very much up in the air. We'll see who is the coach of the future for this team and whether or not this team can return to any kind of success. The Big Ten's not getting any easier, adding 4 of the top teams in the Pac-12 in the future. So, it's a tough situation for the Wildcats right now. I do think that there's at least some optimism, but it's going to be a challenge moving on into the future for this team. Ben Bryant, coming in from Cincinnati, quarterback. You also lose Carl Richardson, who was a backup from last season. Malik Washington off to Virginia. Bring in A.J. Henning and Cam Johnson for the receiving core. Both these guys should be starters in 2023. Jensen Hooper-Price is off to Coastal Carolina. Matt Lawson is coming in from Fresno State, and then you lose A.J. Hampton off to Tulane from the defensive secondary. So, and then recruiting-wise, 47th in the country, 10th in the Big Ten. Got a 4-star and 18 3-stars coming in. Recruiting could be worse, not terrible, considering the situation this team is in right now. It is just a tough situation. The future is very much up in the air for this team right now, and obviously with the Big Ten not getting any easier, I've got this team at a 4 out of 10 on the future forecast meter. I still think this team, and we've seen this team defy the odds in years past. They've exceeded expectations when no one expected them to. And I mean, it wasn't too long ago that this team won the West Division. They've done it multiple times in recent years. So I don't think that this team is totally gone at this point, but obviously the situation with coaching, Pat Fitzgerald was around for over a decade. He was around since 2006 and really led this team to success. And so we'll see if the new coach, whoever that's going to be, can lead this team back there. But as of right now, it's just a very uncertain future. But with that, let's take a look at the schedule now. So you got Rutgers on the road week 1 on a Sunday afternoon. An interesting time there for a college game, but you got them on the road. And then UTEP at home, Duke on the road, Minnesota at home. You got Penn State at home, then Howard at home to start out October. You got your bye week. And then off to Nebraska. Then you play Maryland at home, Iowa. And that game is in Chicago at Soldier Field, I think, there. So you got them in a neutral location. Then Wisconsin on the road, Purdue at home. And then Illinois on the road to finish out the regular season. So, I mean, for your crossover games, you got to play Rutgers. You got to play Penn State. And then you got to play Maryland. So, I mean, your crossover games could be worse. But this is one of the few years where Duke could be a pretty solid team. So your non-conference schedule isn't all that easy. But UTEP and Howard, very winnable games. But looking at September, Rutgers on the road. And I do think you dropped that one. I think this is a game that kind of could go either way. But with it being on the road, week 1, I do want to take Rutgers there in a close one. So you drop that one, then UTEP, get a nice win against them in a close one. And then you lose to Duke, you lose to Minnesota, 2 teams that should be solid teams in 2023. And once again, this is one of the few years where Duke could actually be maybe an ACC contender. They could be pretty good this upcoming season. So you drop both of them. You're 1-3 heading into the Penn State matchup. You also lose that one. Penn State next year is going to be tough. I see them as probably a top 10, top 15 team, kind of similar to where they were last season. And then Howard, you beat them pretty easily. Got your bye week, then Nebraska on the road, Maryland at home. I think you drop both these games. Nebraska beat them last season, but on the road, I'm going to take the Huskers there, then Maryland at home. Even Maryland this upcoming season could be a solid 8 or 9 win team. So I'm going to take them as well. You're 2-6 heading to the Iowa matchup, which is at Wrigley Field. It's neutral location there against Iowa, not Soldier Field. I'll correct myself there. Iowa next season, would be surprised if they won the West. Same with Wisconsin. It's either going to be Iowa or Wisconsin. I do think you drop both games to them. And then Purdue at home, I think you drop that one. And even Illinois. I mean, honestly, Purdue's pretty winnable. I do think Purdue drops off quite a bit. Illinois on the road. Illinois could be a tough team defensively. So it's going to be tough getting anything going against them. But honestly, though, that Purdue matchup definitely could go either way. Offensively, Purdue is going to be pretty terrible, and this defense could get it done there. So, but I do have 2-10 for the Wildcats. I just think that considering the situation that this team is in right now and the way this offseason, this summer has gone, just not good for this team. And last year was 1-11, just a bad year. So I think expectations are overall really low for this team, and I think they should be that way. You consider the situation this team is in right now. I've got 5-7 for the ceiling. Maybe if this team steals a couple of wins, 1-11 for the floor. I can't imagine this team goes 0-12. I mean, Howard is, I'd say, you would think it's a guaranteed win there, but for all we know with this team right now. So obviously it's kind of a down time for this team. We'll see if they can bounce back in the future, and we can hope that for the Wildcats. But with that, I appreciate you guys all watching as always. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this team, and stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.